Well, I want to go to Claire. Claire, I'm sure you want to share your thoughts on Joe Biden, but I'm also curious, as a former senator and a former prosecutor yourself, your thoughts on former senator and former prosecutor Kamala Harris, especially not just prosecuting the case against Trump, which there is a long list of issues of criminality and bigotry, racism, white nationalism that I think personally she could handle and prosecute quite well. But we're at a time where women are suffering the fate of Trump presidency and the Supreme Court justices that he put in, losing 50 years of rights. And right now, women across America who need abortion health care are suffering. We have seen story after story of women being told to bleed out in parking lots or to give birth to unviable fetuses and become sterilized, all because of the impact of a Trump presidency. How do you think this former senator and former prosecutor would manage a presidential campaign against someone like Donald Trump?
Well, she's going to be terrific. And what you saw yesterday was excitement, but it was really tempered, Mika. The excitement was tempered by an overwhelming sense of gratitude, respect for a selfless patriot. You look at Donald Trump, and he is the walking definition of selfish. You look at Joe Biden, he is the walking definition of selflessness and putting his country before everything else. And he always has in his entire career. So there was a lot of support that poured out for Kamala Harris yesterday. But it's going to just build, because with every day that passes and with the blessing and the push by Joe Biden, Kamala Harris is going to be the second woman nominated for president by the Democratic Party. She's got a special set of skills that suit her for this moment. We've talked about her being a prosecutor. And keep in mind, let me just say this about Kamala. She is toughened up. I'm not going to lie to you. In the first year or so of her vice presidency, I think it was difficult for her. She had a lot of hate directed toward her by people without really a good reason. Oh, I just don't like her. Well, what is that? What is that? She has overcome and overperformed and been underestimated at every turn of her career. And now she's got an open field, and she is going to go to town, especially on the subject you mentioned. We have a man who proudly overturned 50 years of important freedoms for American women. Yes. We have a man who entered the convention, the Republican convention, to a song called "It's a Man's World." We have a vice president. Now think about this. We have a vice president who in the last few months voted against, on the Senate floor, protection for families in America that want to use IVF. He voted against protecting contraception. He voted no. So this is a moment where Kamala Harris can do what she does best. She can take her case to the United States. And I just hope America gives her a chance and get to know her before you decide, oh, I don't like her laugh or some stupid nonsense like that. Look at who she is as a person and how well she'll be able to lead our country.
So, hey, Claire, real quickly, I'm just curious what your opinion is. Should she run against other people? Would that help her if she had some reps running against other people, or should this just be a nomination by acclamation?
Well, anyone can run right now. This is an open process. And contrary to what the Republicans are saying,
no, I'm just asking. What's best? What do you think's best?
I don't think it's something that we can game out. I think this is going to happen organically. I actually think that there's going to be such a movement. And God love Joe Biden. I mean, God love Joe Manchin. I mean, talk about a man in search of relevance. Bless his heart.
You knew that was coming. Bless his heart. Bless his heart.
Bless his heart.
God
Bless his
bless.
heart.
God bless. This is you. You're Southern woman. Yeah.
I don't know that a town hall with Joe Manchin would be particularly illuminating. I mean, I think she would do a very good job. I don't have any problem with that if Joe Manchin wants to do it. But I think this is going to be so overwhelming and happen so quickly. I think she's going to be the nominee in about 10 minutes.
All right, Claire, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate you being on. Michael Beschloss, so much history to talk about here. We could talk about Truman getting out in 52, LBJ getting out in 68. But 2024 has history not repeating itself or rhyming here. Here is a president and his wife who wanted to stay, but it just wasn't in the cards.
No, that's right. And as you know well, Joe, Truman got out in March of that year. Johnson got out in March of that year. Here we are in July. The convention is in about a month. So this is something that we have not seen in modern times. But even more than that, let's look at two historical moments that are almost bookends for the Biden presidency. January 6th. This is a President Biden, who loves democracy, I think will be honored and revered and beloved and have a large place in American history because he did so much to save democracy. Two bookends. January 6th. Donald Trump lost the election, but tried to steal a second term as president by inspiring that insurrection at the Capitol, violated the law, could have trounced our democracy and fractured it if he had succeeded. Then in comes Joe Biden, preserves NATO, huge legislative record, speaks about democracy throughout that presidency, and then in the end, the toughest thing for a politician, I think you and Mika mentioned this both earlier. George Washington in 1795 said, if democracy is going to work, political leaders have to leave power even if they can have more. So therefore, I'm retiring to Mount Vernon. Joe Biden is doing exactly the same thing. He could have dug in this week and said, well, I've got those delegates and I'm going to fight it out. And maybe at the convention, things will change and maybe I'll win. And if I don't, tough luck. Instead, he said, the stakes for democracy are so great this year, Donald Trump could make this into a dictatorship, steal all of our rights, that I'm going to do the toughest thing a politician perhaps can do, which is to walk away from power.
We grew up hearing about how George Washington did that, but also, Michael, about Cincinnatus, the Roman leader who was given power, and after he made sure that Rome was safe, once again went back and gave up that power and went back to his farm. There's obviously a legend of that's lived 2,000 years. We're talking 200 years later about George Washington. I don't know how long we'll talk about Joe Biden doing this, but it is, we can say at the very least, it is radically different than what Donald Trump did after losing an election in 2020.
Exactly the opposite.
Yeah,
exactly the opposite.
Talk about how history will remember these two men.
Well, in Joe Biden's case, as someone who, he gave those great speeches on democracy. And as you know, Joe, when you hear a political leader give a speech, you always wonder how much he really means it. Well, if anyone had any question, and I never did, Joe Biden demonstrated in the last 24 hours that he's willing to give up a half-century plus political career in order to try to save this democracy. Not everyone would do that.
Michael Beschloss, thank you so much. And Joe, to your point that you were making with Claire, I don't think there's time for reps. I get what Claire was saying about Kamala Harris, but she also pointed out beautifully that this moment is made for her. She needs to prosecute it. And sometimes you just got to move forward at 100 miles an hour. And what is it that you say? No one stops you when you're going 100 miles an hour. Just barrel through. We don't have time. How many days till this election? It's
not
a short number.
Just over 100.
Coming up, we've got a number of